I left the city, I've been browsing. Treading water that they drowning. My head on a swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Smash or Pass podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF, all part of the Smash Accept network of podcasts. And what we really set out for this podcast, for Smash or Pass, was to talk market values. Today, we're going to hit you up with Lamar, Lance, Love, and just really try to help you guys out because the market value is all over the place. Who better to talk that up than my co-host at Fantasy Nerd Boy himself? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk some Lance and just the whole landscape of quarterbacks in general. We're getting a lot of news coming out in the last couple of weeks, and people have no idea what to do with the rise and fall of that tier of quarterback in general. So, excited to jump in there and kind of go over exactly what we would do in these situations when we have these players.
I love a good alliteration, so it was great. It was Lamar, Lance, and Love, all three of them thrown in there. This is the biggest thing that I have noticed, and Twitter a lot of times overreacts, underreacts. We're here to really, at Smash or Pass, talk about this market value and how you should value these things because there's so much extra value you can add to your team when you take care of, the way some of these people are overreacting. And I see on Twitter the ranges of outcomes on these guys. People are just overreacting like crazy. And I think now is the time where we can really bring you guys some information on that, shed some light on some players, and really hopefully help you guys make dynasty trades that are really going to push you guys in the right direction. The first guy, let's talk about Lamar Jackson. I mean, obviously, we knew before, we've been doing startups since the Super Bowl was over. You and I have been in quite a few. We have not really changed our view on Lamar Jackson because we knew he was either going to get traded or play on the franchise tag. Obviously, he requested the trade. There's a lot of trade rumors out there right now. What I want to talk about is, before we get to the landing spots, Lamar Jackson, the comment that I see out there all the time is, my man's injury prone. We just need to stop with the injury prone Lamar Jackson. Yes, he burned us in the super flex or in the fantasy playoffs in 2021 and 2022. And I think that's what really has people irked. I was looking at Dave Kluge's Twitter today. He said since 2000, 81 quarterbacks have started at least 50 NFL games. Lamar Jackson in that time has started 70 out of his 82, which is 86%. That ranks 18th out of the 81. So, I mean, he's in that upper tier, but the last couple of years, the injuries have piled up. If you look at what he missed 2 games due to illness, 1 from COVID, 4 from that right ankle sprain in 2021, and then 5 from that left PCL in 2022. Mike, people are just down on Lamar Jackson. I mean, I feel like for no reason. If you look at a guy that has had a phenomenal career, and we're at a spot in Superflex, he's still a screaming value.
Yeah, I think the hate on Lamar is people getting hurt over the past seasons because, like you mentioned, Lamar has been hurt probably at the biggest moments in the fantasy season. When we're talking fantasy playoffs, he hasn't really been there to lead a team to the championship. Unfortunately, a lot of managers have that in the back of their brain where it's they went into the fantasy playoffs last year with Tyler Huntley as a quarterback. And if and in 21 that to a manager,
21 it wasn't bad because Huntley balled out. 22. Huntley was getting you like one touchdown a game. The legs weren't there, and that really, you're right, that resonates with a lot of fantasy owners of they're trying to move off of them and trying to go to the next guy. I'm just saying across his career, this has been a guy that's played, and it's just like, what have you done for me lately?
That's what it is. It's recency bias, and that's what it always is when it comes to Twitter and, less, I don't want to say less experienced managers, but people that have that reactionary, mindset. It's not going to work well when it, especially top quarterbacks. It's ebbs and flows, unfortunately, and Lamar as a whole has been very consistent, injury prone thing. People like to, spread that as a thin layer over rushing quarterbacks. But ultimately that doesn't stand pat with Lamar at all. It's not, you're talking COVID year and talking kind of freak illnesses and stuff like that. The ankle is really the only thing that you're talking real injury. So I'm not fading Lamar at all. The contract issue is, not any issue for me. I love Lamar and I love where I'm getting him at value right now too.
I mean, we were looking at a guy, the first player, obviously, with a 3,000 yards, 1,000 rushing yards, most rushing yards in a season. This is a guy that just turned 26 years old. I personally have him. I have moved Fields and Lawrence above him, at the 6 and 7. I've moved him to 8. I have no quarrels with anybody taking him in those tiers. But I'm seeing some people trading Lamar Jackson for Dak Prescott, where you and I did a deal couple months ago where it was adding a 24 first, which I feel like where it belongs. People are starting to react to like Lamar Jackson here. Like this news isn't a good thing. Like if he moves to, let's talk about some of these landing spots. I mean, to me, the juiciest one and what blows my mind is almost all these guys right now saying, hey, we're not interested, right? And they are. There's teams out there. But for me, you're looking at the Colts, the Falcons, the Commanders, the Patriots, even the Niners in a interesting type move. But I mean, if we see him go to the Falcons with Pitts and with Drake London, I mean, I think we have a phenomenal offense that's starting to brew. I mean, the 49ers, that's more of a pipe dream if there was a Lance and Lamar kind of flop and some picks in there. But where is that spot that you want to see him go? I mean, you have to, even the Colts would be with that offensive line. You look at the Commanders, they had a plus line as well. It's like, where do we want to see him go? Or do we want him to stay in Baltimore?
Yeah, I think the Baltimore dream is really dying as days goes on. I think there's bad blood there, and I think the longer that this goes on, the less likely he's going to stay in Baltimore. I would almost say there's a less than, I don't know. I mean, I would say there's almost a 0% chance that he stays in Baltimore.
I agree.
I think he would probably rather sit out the season than go back and play for them right now. Ideally, I think I would like to see him with the Colts. I think that offensive line, and they have any team right now would have more weapons than Baltimore. I mean, I love Andrews and Bateman when he's on the field is a great weapon. But I think, him with Pittman, Jelani Woods is great too. I think he's very undervalued as an up and coming tight end. It's just that team as a whole. I think Lamar would fit really well with that team. The Falcons would be great too. All these teams are posturing right now because Lamar doesn't have an agent, and the whole idea is to kind of make him feel like there's not a lot of desire and interest as a whole. I don't think a lot of teams want to give up those first rounders either. To Baltimore, but they're trying to play their hand a little bit, and it feels a little disrespectful to me. But I guess that's the name of the game when it comes to the business. So well,
and you're looking at and I don't want to knock a guy for trying to do what he thinks is right, but like not having an agent in today's world just seems like it's a recipe for disaster. I mean, he wanted to get paid when Josh Allen got paid. Josh Allen got paid. He got it done. And, it's just been that struggle for Lamar. I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. If you look him in points per game every single year, he's in that top 5 to 6. He is a upper tier QB1. I would be more than willing. I would love to move up from Dak, from Watson, from one of these, 102 through 104 rookie picks to get a Lamar Jackson. And I'm seeing, I saw a trade the other day, the 104 and a 24 first for Lamar Jackson. So you're not even getting your choice of your favorite quarterback in the class. You're getting your third favorite pick out of that in the quarterback class, plus a 24 first for Lamar Jackson. That's the kind of move I'm going to hit the smash accept button all day because we've seen it, right? Like we want to believe that Anthony Richardson or Bryce Stroud Bryce Young or CJ Stroud will be Lamar Jackson, right? And sometimes we can just add that 24 first, especially if you're a contending team, and get a Lamar Jackson. I think now is, especially at 26 years old, like this is a guy who has been phenomenal over the course of his career. Buy now before it gets too late, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely go buy Lamar. Anthony Richardson is probably the closest you're going to get to Lamar, and that's a giant maybe, it's not, I don't see Young or Stroud getting there because they don't have that rushing ability.
Right.
And to be elite in fantasy, you do have to have that rushing, or you have to be almost a Hall of Famer when it comes to passing, because you without that rushing, you're going to have to be extremely accurate. You're going to have to throw, 4 or 5 touchdowns a game to be at that top tier of fantasy quarterback.
You need that base 600, 700 yards rushing with these guys. You look at Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts, they're tier 1 because that's what they do. You got to be Joe Burrow level to even be in that area, which I agree with you. I don't think Stroud or Young are going to be at that Joe Burrow level without some serious weapons around them and to find things to excel. And then you look at that next tier, obviously with, you got Herbert, and maybe they ascend to that area, but that's a long shot. For me, I think Stroud and Young both go into that Dak Prescott ceiling. That's kind of where they're at. Anthony Richardson is an interesting point because I feel like we might see him get into that 102 depending on what that landing spot is, because when you add the rushing floor that he's going to have, he has that upside of a Lamar Jackson, but why not pay a 24 first to have Lamar Jackson? You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about the upside of Anthony Richardson, but you already get it and the production is going to be there. Anthony Richardson is raw. He's fun, but he's raw.
Yeah, best case scenario, Anthony Richardson turns into Lamar. Mm-hmm. So as opposed to going for Anthony Richardson, just get Lamar, because you know what Lamar is, and you don't have to deal with the maybe he's going to become this or that. You already know that he is that. So, use that capital to go get Lamar.
Yeah, and he's going to be playing possessed. Like, honestly, if he gets the new contract, he's going to be playing like to prove he deserves it. No matter what, I feel like Lamar Jackson, he's an angry man right now. Like, you look at his Twitter rants, you look what he just wants to get out there on the football field, get what he's worth, and show out. And I think we are going to see a career year from Lamar Jackson. I really do. And I think even cascading back from some of the big guys, I think you can get a lot plus from a Jalen Hurts, from a Joe Burrow. I'm never strongly advocating moving off those guys, but I think you could get, a pretty strong plus on top of Lamar Jackson for those guys. Let's transition over to a different spectrum. So obviously we get that absolute, jaw-dropping thing. You and I have both been on Trey Lance. His ADP has been climbing up and up and up over the offseason. And then all of a sudden we get to March 28th and John Lynch is like, you know what? Brock Purdy's a leader in this clubhouse for the starting job if and when he's healthy enough to play. Shanahan said today they would listen to calls on their other quarterbacks, bringing up speculation that Trey Lance could be available for the right trade. Okay, so Twitter just breaks, right? So we're at a spot where before this, I was advocating that in that 104, 105 range, Trey Lance is in that area, because then you get a choice of if you want Trey Lance or you want that quarterback that falls or JSN, and that was like the ceiling of what I've been willing to pay. Right now, I'm going to bring up a thread here that one of our favorite guys is in. But before we get to that, what do you think of this overreaction right off the bat? Because like I have people coming to me and like, hey, 24-second or Trey Lance. I'm like, whoa. Like, we cannot just move off completely. I mean, this is still, in my opinion, we have Brock Purdy's not going to be ready for the beginning of the season. I don't think the other thing that's out there is you're seeing Trey Lance and Sam Darnold are supposed to split first team reps. So what is Shanahan doing? What is this a ploy to get Trey Lance trade value up? Or I'm sorry, to trade Trey Lance? Is this a ploy to get Trey Lance to step his game up? What are we looking at out of what we're hearing from Shanahan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't put a lot of stock into the whole owner speak at this point in time of the offseason. I think there's a lot of, motivational speak. There's, you can't translate it to, specifically meaning Lance is not going to have this job. I will never take something I hear in March and just say that's fact and that's going to happen.
I'm glad you said March. So like, that's the biggest thing right now, Mike, is like, I get DMs nonstop and I put a tweet out today. You're not filling a starting lineup in March. You have to fill your starting lineup by September. And everyone's like, oh no, I got to sell Trey Lance. I'm going to deal him I saw somebody deal him for Kenny Pickett. And I'm like, you just took all the upside out of Trey Lance and just went for a base level of Kenny Pickett. And it's like, there's no need to make these overreactions right now. Like, we are in March. It's almost April. It's not even the NFL draft. Like, calm down a little bit. I feel like the more dynasty content we put out, that everybody puts out in the community, everyone wants to make these immediate changes. They're like, oh man, what if the bottom falls out of Trey Lance? I don't think the bottom is going to fall out.
Yeah, you need to step away from fantasy when that is what you're doing in March. I love the content, I love pushing stuff, and I love putting out advice and all that. But you don't have to really put all your eggs into the basket of March and April, and that's not what you need to do. Trey Lance was on Rich Eisen's show, I think last week, and he even said, I know that I'm going to be fighting for the starting job. He has that mentality where he said, I know Purdy came in and he balled out, and I know that this is his job and I'm going to have to fight for the starting position. He understands that. He knows that this is going to be a battle. I think Trey Lance is way more talented, in general than Purdy. I think Purdy's great, but I think he's also, an average quarterback. And I think Trey Lance is, way above average when it comes to, qualities and skill set. So I don't see Purdy or Darnold starting day one. I think that's Trey Lance's job. But, I would be lying if I said this didn't hurt his value a little bit. Because it is hard to buy in, even though this is, coach speak, but it's something you might have to consider a little bit if you're going to try to buy Trey Lance. I don't think I'm going to buy any, but I'm not going to sell any at the same time.
Right. I think what we have to look at is if you're underselling on Trey Lance, you're potentially losing, obviously, for 2022 and losing value. We have not seen a lot of him as a starter. You know what I mean? Obviously, week one where it was pouring down raining, that's not something to necessarily compare with. And obviously, he has the rushing upside that Brock Purdy does not. Obviously, Brock Purdy looked great when he got the start. Maybe he's the starter, maybe he isn't. But let's talk about what we can buy Trey Lance for. Obviously, Dave Heilman over at Dynasty Dorks did a thread. We're going to reference a couple of his threads. They're fantastic. If you guys don't follow their podcast or him, you need to now. That's at Dynasty Dorks. So right now, he put it out there for every single pick. And right now you're looking at the 108 is 56-47 for Trey Lance, and the 109 is 57-43. So right now, Mike, we're looking at him falling between that 108, 109. You and I are going to do a little bit of talking about, Charbonnet later. But, in that 17 to 19 range, you're looking at what? Charbonnet, Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, who are you preferring right there? And obviously I know it's situational, but if I come to you right now and you have the 108 and I offer you Trey Lance, is that a smash or pass?
Yeah, I would smash that. Trey Lance has not really had the opportunity in the NFL that the consensus is kind of play. He hasn't started more than 2 games, and one of those was in a monsoon. And, he hasn't had the experience in the NFL to have a proper eye test for, in general to kind of scout him and think about if he's going to be a star or not. It's not, you don't have that yet. So he's not any different than any prospect you're going to pick up in the late first anyway. So I'd rather, take my chances with Trey Lance at that point.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that we were talking about that 104, 105, and that felt a little rich at the time. It really did. But 1-8, if you don't have a quarterback, this is a nice area. Now, I would much rather advocate. I'm seeing random 24 firsts. I'm seeing what would probably be a late 24 first and maybe something in that 205, 206 range. I'm super comfortable with that because what I see is he is the prototypical right now. If you have 2 quarterbacks and you say, I don't need Trey Lance, a lot of people in the Patreon ask, what do you do with that third quarterback position? I think Trey Lance is the absolute perfect third quarterback right now. If you have a team right now where you have Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence and you say, hey, I don't need another quarterback, why not go out there and make an offer like that, a 24 first and the 205 for Trey Lance and see what happens? I mean, there's a huge drop off. We talk about in the rankings right now. I am moving Trey Lance below Tua. I had them like neck and neck. I'm moving Daniel Jones above him just because of, we saw what he had last year. He has Dable again. I'm very comfortable with that. And then when you get down to that next stop, I mean, there's a huge drop off. We talked about the difference between where Daniel Jones is, and then it's Kirk Cousins, Goff, Pickett, Mac Jones, Geno, Russ, Derek Carr. Would you rather have any of those from Cousins to Carr over Trey Lance right now?
If I'm competing, Cousins is very undervalued as far as what he's going to provide a fantasy team. So if I need that, that definite output as far as fantasy points go, I would probably go Cousins over Lance. But if I'm talking fantasy value, as a whole, I would take Lance over Cousins. Because we could point and look at Justin Fields at this time last year, almost the same thing where we didn't see a lot from him and people really down on him. They thought they were going to replace him at one point. After that monsoon game, I saw Fields going for 23 seconds. I saw him going for nothing, and you can see that the quarterback position, it rises fast. All Lance has to do is have 2-3 good games and his value is going to, skyrocket. So I think patience is key here too.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, that's where I had him. I had him like even with Cousins if you're trying to compete, but I feel like that's that trade that we talk about where you do a 2 for 2, right? So you give up, you end up giving up Trey Lance and a wide receiver and get Kirk Cousins and another wide receiver who's going to help you immediately if you're win now. Otherwise, Trey Lance has to be a firm hold for you. I feel like he has to be in that area where if I can go out and buy him as my number 3, I'm all for it. I think I can see things like that next tier down. You could probably add a 24 first to Russ, Carr, Rodgers, Ritter, who's starting to get some hype, and even Love, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I think the ceiling of Trey Lance is so much higher, and we're not going to, even if he isn't the starter right off the bat, I think this is a guy that's still going to maintain some value where you guys should not be selling on the cheap. Be patient. Like Mike says, like if we're patient in that area, last year we saw that with Fields. We're going to see a similar type thing with Trey Lance right now. Just be patient and go out in there and get that. Anything else to add to, potential Trey Lance deals where right now, let's say you're rebuilding. I mean, I think Trey Lance is a perfect guy to go out there and cascade off of, get Dak Prescott, give up Dak Prescott and get Trey Lance and a mid 23 first or a 24 first, give up Dak in a second and get 2 24 firsts on top of Trey Lance. This is that opportunity where I think you can really, make that splash trade into your rebuild, pick up Trey Lance and have the upside where if you told me that Trey Lance was equal to Dak Prescott by midseason, I would not be shocked at that. Like he has that upside, the fantasy upside where last year we had that same thing where if you traded Dak Prescott for Fields plus, you are looking brilliant. Trey Lance could be in that same area.
Right now, with the community being so low on Trey Lance, you could use him as a throw-in in a lot of deals, with his value being as low as it is with some managers. I would definitely strongly suggest getting him. Even, you probably wouldn't even have to sell a quarterback to get him. You could sell, a mid-tier wide receiver right now and maybe grab Trey Lance. It's like that. So I'm always buying quarterbacks that are low in value because they have the chance to shoot up higher than any other position in fantasy.
Yeah, and there's not many guys that have that same upside that are going to be in that same area, and I think buying him for that 108 to 110 range, there isn't much else you're going to be able to get. You might be able to get Cousins, but the rest of the guys in that list, so much more upside. And I think, you got to really look at right now, people that are putting him out there on their, trade bait, like there's a difference, right? So you hear positive news like we hear on a Desmond Ritter or a Sam Howell and they get put on the trade bait. That guy's trying to get out of that. He's like, okay, I'm seeing a window here. If they put the trade bait up on Trey Lance, they're also trying to get out on it, but they're those guys typically in my mind are the guys that are willing to sell low, right? There's no time. You should not be out there rushing. You should not be out there saying, "Hey, come get him," because you want them to come to you, like the savvy owners that you and I are. If you put them out there on the trade bait, you're going to get some crap offers right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not going to be great. It's not a good time to sell. If you have them, you hold them. And if you're in need of a quarterback 3 that you might not need to start right away, go buy him.
Yeah, absolutely.
But people are asking me what I'm selling Lance for right now, and don't sell him right now.
So let's talk about, we're keeping the alliteration going. We talked Lamar, we talked Lance. Now let's talk Love. So back to Dave Heilman again. Again, go follow him. He put out a thread of like, who would you rather have? And we were putting some things. Jordan Love is an interesting topic, right? Because Aaron Rodgers has not been traded yet. He likely will be. I feel like they definitely get that deal done. We have not seen a lot of Jordan Love. Last year his only start, his QBR was 120. He looked really good. Some of the ones here, we're just going to play smash or pass based off this thread. Kirk Cousins or Jordan Love, I was shocked at how close this one is.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins for me.
Yeah, it's 51-49.
That makes no sense because what you're getting with Kirk Cousins. And I get the age thing, and that is probably a big part of that poll. People are always younger is better. But Kirk is consistent, unless it's what is he not good in the daytime games or
in prime time?
I can't remember what he.
Oh, he's so good during the day. Prime time, you don't want to start him. Sit him on your bench then.
Like
nighttime QB3 there.
Stuff like that. You don't want Kirk in there, but he's a good value.
Here's the other guys on there. So I has Jordan Love over Carr, and I feel like that's even. I feel like Derek Carr could have a nice resurgence here and really a Cinderella story in New Orleans with the weapons that are around there. Even if they add more, I mean that one, and then that's 56-44 in favor of Jordan Love. You look at 52 in favor of Russell Wilson's 48. So if you're out there, you got Russell Wilson, down year, obviously. Derek Carr, down year. Jordan Love, we're playing the upside, but we haven't seen much out of those 3 guys. I mean, who would you make a move for here? And I know it's obviously, in a vacuum. We're talking about if I'm rebuilding, yeah, I mean, I'd rather have Love than Russell Wilson. But if you're playing right now, Wilson and Carr both have that, upside to have a very good 2023.
Yeah, I get Carr. I think Love might have a higher ceiling than Carr. Russ, I know he's down a little bit, but I would take Russ Wilson with Sean Payton over Love all day. I think he's a great value right now.
The weapons were there, right? It's like the weapons were there. We just didn't have a coach. Now we have a coach. I'm with you, man.
Once Hackett left, I mean, we saw what he wasn't used properly. They were trying to have him kind of play out of his strengths, and that he was uncomfortable. You could see that on the field. He wasn't comfortable at all. I think it's a good year for him. Definitely a much better year than last. So I would trade Love for Russ on a competing team all day, and if Love's value is viewed a little higher, then I would gladly take a second or something on top of Russ if that's how it's going. And I'm not buying the idea of Love right now, but
yeah, the idea of these threads, and I mean, Elon, if you take these things away, this is going to be these polls. You're going to have to be verified. But I'm looking at it as like it gives you an idea, right? You're able to look at these polls and be like, if it's voting this way, and I know Twitter is a mob, and a lot of times people overreact one way or another. But these next 2 blow my mind, Mike. Is Jordan Love 64, Geno Smith 36. Jordan Love 62, Jared Goff 38. Jared Goff and Geno Smith were QB1s this past year. I mean, Geno Smith just got a contract. Jared Goff is playing in one of the more fun offenses in the league. Jordan Love's going to have a really nice season to get to both of those if you're looking for production.
Yeah, it's crazy that people are so into Love and so off of Lance,
Yeah.
I don't
even know if that one's in here. Is there Love versus Lance?
Like people, I saw that, and I think Lance was I saw it somewhere. I can't remember who did it, but it was like 53 to 40, high 40 something. It was bad. It wasn't even, people are very high on Love and very low on Lance.
Yeah.
I would take Goff over Love all day, and then Geno for this year, definitely. I don't know what they're going to do in Seattle past this year. His contract is pretty front loaded, and I think they're probably going to draft his backup or his replacement at some point. But Goff has shown us what he is, and it's not a bad quarterback in fantasy, and he is attached to some of the best weapons in the NFL right now. So I don't get some of these polls, and that's kind of how Twitter goes.
If I asked you right now, what would you say that, I don't know how deep you looked into this actual thread, what do you think his going value is in rookie picks? I told people I would be willing to pay 203 to 205, and I know that's probably not going to get it done in most leagues. What do you think Twitter has voted on this? Over 150 votes, so it's not a super small sample size.
I think they would probably, based off of these results, I have Goff at like the 110 range, and they would probably say the 109 or 10, probably around there.
Between the 109 and the 110, but they think Trey Lance is worth the 108 and 109. So guys, if you can go to the guy that has Trey Lance and you have Jordan Love and you offer Jordan Love in a third, man, that's a smash accept for me, and I think not trying to take away from Love. I just think there is a lot of, we want to say Trey Lance's sample size is small, so therefore, we're out on him. Jordan Love doesn't have the starting job yet either, but we're trying to jump the gun here a little bit. I think, we're looking at, Twitter has it, Mac Jones, 80-20 in favor of Jordan Love. Kenny Pickett, 70-30 in favor. So, I mean, what we're saying right now is make some of those moves. I mean, if you're in a rebuild, I think Jordan Love was a guy last year that I was grabbing everywhere. So I traded Tyson Huntley. I traded Gardner Minshew in a third for Jordan Love. Like, I was just, speculative type things. Now that's where you can make that move, and you can sell now for a premium. And I think what we try to talk about a lot is, we always say enjoy the process, but it's process over results. Yeah, you sell Jordan Love for any first right now. Like, I'm advocating, go ahead. You get a 24 first for Jordan Love, great. You reset the clock. You get anything in that, 1.9 to 1.12 range, absolutely reset the clock, get yourself another opportunity. And if Jordan Love plays well, you might have lost a little bit of value, but in the long term, these kind of moves, if you make them over and over and over again, and you're making that's in the right process, you're going to win long term. So a lot of you guys have Jordan Love as your fourth, fifth quarterback because you drafted him multiple years ago. He's been sitting on your bench. Now's the time to cash out for me.
Yeah, sure. I've sold Love I got Swift in a second for Love, actually. When that news came out about Swift,
you got Swift plus for Love?
I got Swift plus for Love.
Wow, yeah. That's jeez.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. I also got Swift straight up in another league. I just started sending Max's love for Swift, and I could have egg on my face by the end of the year.
Yeah,
Love could easily be a great fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's in the range of outcomes. But like right now, we're talking about the process of like buying. Twitter has it at 90% Jordan Love over the 202. I mean, I just did my updated rankings, and like Kincaid and Flowers, and like the 202 is a nice spot. And we haven't even had these running backs jump in. I mean, there's guys like Bigsby and Evans and Tucker, and there's so many running backs. Some of them's going to get a premium landing spot where they're going to move up. If you can even get the 201, 202, it's so hard to advocate buying at these prices. And that's why we talk about market values, because I think this is just way above, and Jordan and Trey Lance is way below.
Yeah, I think if Jordan Love's your QB1 fantasy, you have a lot of problems on your team. So
well, then you rebuild.
I think if you're, if that's your guy, I think there's, you're going to have to do a lot of assessment on your team. But like you said, Love is probably the quarterback 3 or 4 on most teams right now. So if you can take advantage of this perceived value boost, go on and do it. Go
Yeah.
get, a major piece for your team and go win a championship. Like I said, he could be a fantasy quarterback. He could be great.
Hmm.
But I would sell right now for, 109 and 110. That's great. That's great value.
And we've talking about it. I'm working on right now some value charts and some because people keep asking what rookie pick plus what. So if we're talking like the 109, okay, and you add your 24 first to the 109, so we're saying that Jordan Love is worth that 109, 110. If you add a 24 first to that, I mean, you should be able to buy a premium prospect. I mean, you should be able to move yourself up where in that type value chart, like we talked about moving off of him, let's talk about moving up. I mean, how high up onto that list, if you even, let's say you have Jordan Love in the 104, where you're not sold on Richardson, Stroud, or Young, you go 104 and Jordan Love, and you get yourself all the way up to maybe even Trevor Lawrence. Like these are some of these moves right now where we don't have to be stuck in hey, I want to sell him for this particular pick. We can move up into that, even Kyler Murray, where maybe Jordan Love and a 1-6 for Kyler Murray. I'm making that kind of move because I want to build. I never play super flex in the middle. We talk about those rankings. That 15 to 24, I rarely own those guys. Like I'm going to own the upside lower pieces, the Ritters, the Howells, and Love in this particular sense. I don't like playing in the middle. I want elite, or I want those guys with upside that I can move.
Yeah, you could probably go that similar move and go get, Lamar.
That was what I was going to say, but it felt too far. Like that was kind of my thought process. But the 104 and the 110 gets you Lamar. So if you can get Lamar Jackson,
it easily could right now because people are having way better. I see him going in the second of startups right now. So I think that's very, very possible. Some people might even take Anthony Richardson over Lamar straight up at this point in time because the people
cash in on the market. Yep. Cash in on the market value, cash in on, the rookie hype, all that stuff. We're here to help you with that. Last guy I want to talk about briefly is Sam Howell. So, right now, Sam Howell on one start, which he looked good. He had that moxie. I liked him coming out of the class, as pretty close to where Kenny Pickett was. Ron Rivera recently discussing he believes Sam Howell has a lot of the same qualities as Brock Purdy. Ron Rivera is saying they don't want to go for Lamar Jackson. If Sam Howell starts, I mean, on the flip side, we're not getting that same buzz as Jordan Love. Like Sam Howell can be had for mid to late seconds, and I'm okay buying that if you think that he actually gets that opportunity. On the flip side, if they do trade for Lamar, that instantly moves him down into that third round rookie pick at best. So what are you doing with your Sam Howell shares? I don't have a lot. Like this is that area where, again, last year I was making moves to get Sam Howell cheap. Like that was the time to get him for nothing. When guys aren't starting, you go out there and you make a move for those guys. Are we cashing in? I would cash in on literally anything above the 204 at this point. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have quite a few Sam Howells. I have him as my QB3 in a couple leagues. I do like Sam Howell as a prospect. He was one of my top quarterbacks coming out of the draft. I think he went a little lower than I expected for sure.
Absolutely.
I would sell him for a high second. But I do like, if he slid into the Love value, would be fine. But right now, I think I would hold a little bit longer until we get some clarity. If we get the report that he's going to be the starter for sure, and he's Rivera's guy, and it's a deal. You might easily slide into that late first, that 108, 109 range. So I think that I would be holding right now because I don't think he's reached that peak sell value yet. But he's getting close, So I would kick the tires on some people that need a quarterback, but as a general rule, I'd hold and wait for that value to increase a little bit.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I think this is just another one of those principles where I drafted him in the third. If I can cash in for an early second in a good class, I'm okay with that, and I think it's just a matter of, again, talking about that process, and making sure we're moving those kind of things. And, because if Lamar gets traded there in the next week, the value dies. If he doesn't, and we see where Lamar goes somewhere else, and now we have a scenario where now you have another window until draft day, right? And that's another thing we talk about it with the prospects about checking all the boxes. So if Sam Howell avoids the Lamar trade and then we get to draft day, now all of a sudden that's another window. And then if somehow they don't draft a quarterback, now all of a sudden, I think late first would make some sense, and I think, or even cashing out for a 24 first. So I think that's about, where we need to be. I saw this from Mason Dodd and I loved it. I mean, we talked about Trey Lance and how much they invested in him. If you guys, it's very difficult for San Francisco to bail on him when you look at, they traded for Trey Lance. They moved up from where the Dolphins got Jalen Waddle. Those other two picks turned out to be Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb. And that blows my mind. That is a phenomenal combination for what could have been. Any closing parts here? Because I feel like we really covered the four quarterbacks, and I think right now there's a lot going on. I know you're doing a lot of things, so why don't you tell the listeners what you've been working on? And I mean, it's rookie fever at full peak. I think we're all excited at Smash Accept. This is our fourth podcast of the week, so we've been cranking out content like crazy.
Yeah, I've been having some fun. I'm getting some schedule clear ups right now, so I'm trying to hop on as many pods as I can. I'll be working with Zoltan about rookie profiles and stuff. And I know we're going to be doing one pretty soon, in the next couple of minutes, Dak Charbonnet as well. And then I'll be doing full rankings, after the draft. I'm trying to wait until after the draft to see how, things fall. And, I don't want to put out rankings a little too early and then have everything kind of blow up on me too.
Yeah.
So I'll probably be doing rankings in the next couple months and, trying to stay as busy as possible in the space, and trying to grow a little bit. You can always find me at Nerdboy Take on DMs are always open, and you can always ask me any fantasy questions on there.
Yeah, and I think I just put my rankings out today. It's obviously a subjective thing. People want to see it. It's a very fluid process. I think 1 through 6 are so chalk right now, and then we're going to really start hitting those rookie profiles on 7 through 24, and really try to get that out there and get that out for our listeners and people on our Patreon. Again, another shout out. Check those out. A lot of action going on over there. So thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process.